past haunts us all. Whether it be a person, place, or thing, we are reluctant to let go. We call to the dead out of desperation and intrigue, searching for answers about what lies behind the shadows. We are paranormal researchers. We are Necromancers. Hello and welcome to the Necromancer live show. I am your host, Justin Brown, and this is episode 50 with Brandon Massullo. Before we get to who Brandon Massullo is and what he does, we are going to introduce our chat moderator and co-hosts, Missy Vastine and Jessica Bias. How are you ladies doing this evening? Oh, let me unmute you. Yes, I am doing well. I have to remember to do that. So what's going on with you girls? Anything new? Anything exciting?
Not since last night.
I know, it's like we talked to you, just the other day.
Well, that's what you do on radio shows. You say, hey, what's
That's
up?
right.
What's up in your neck of the woods? You'll be like, oh, I did this and I did that. And it was blah, blah, blah. But none of that, huh? You're not going to give me nothing?
No, nothing.
Okay, you put more little microscopic holes in Josh's walls and that's about it.
Right. Shh. He's listening. Just said he's listening.
All right. Well, if you guys are first-time viewers watching out there in YouTube land and Facebook land, we are going to read your comments, shout you out, and read off your questions for our guests tonight. We periodically go to Jess on YouTube and Missy on Facebook to do that very thing. So if you have any questions or comments, we will be addressing those periodically through the show, okay? Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you have not already done that on YouTube, and follow the Necromancer live show. Hit that like button, share this video broadcast to all your friends on your social media platforms. That would help us out a lot. Without further ado, we have Brandon Massullo of Medina, Ohio. Medina, however you pronounce it, I'm sorry. He is a clinical therapist, a parapsychologist, and author. Fascinated by paranormal phenomena for more than 20 years, Massullo has been a participant and featured speaker at numerous paranormal forums and events, including Coast to Coast AM and the Parapsychological Association's 60th anniversary celebration. He studied psychology and parapsychology at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. His research has been cited in numerous parapsychological journals, articles, and mainstream books. Brandon's first book, The Ghost Studies, New Perspectives on the Origins of Paranormal Experience, has been the #1 new release and top 10 bestseller in ghosts and hauntings on Amazon. So without further ado, what's up, Brandon? How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Justin.
You are very welcome. Thanks for accepting the invite. Come on the show. I always like talking to someone who is, cracked, their head on top of their keyboards and, worn their thumbs to the bone doing the research that we need, out there. So I appreciate and applaud you for, I've known you've done quite a bit. I think you've done about 5 years for the ghost studies. Is that about how long?
Oh, God. Yeah, it took me about 5-6 years to write. And then prior to that, obviously going to school or college, it's another 5 years in there too. So you're right. Pounding my head on the keyboard, that happened a lot of nights. So that's a pretty accurate description. A lot of times people don't think about, college is college, but there were nights I spent 24 hours awake in the computer lab, doing research. I just survived off Snickers bars and Coca-Cola and Cherry Coke, and that could be a struggle.
So you have diabetes now.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know what it is about Snickers bars, but they really kept me awake and focused. It was like my my Adderall.
Maybe you should do a commercial.
I should, yes.
All right, Brandon. That's pretty funny. I know all about what it takes to do actual good research, and just to learn everything you can for a project, or a piece of work that you're not only passionate about, but you really want to contribute to what you're doing. And that's what it takes, man. It just takes heart, blood, tears, soul, everything. It takes everything you got. So I applaud you for that. But
Thanks.
what we want to do on this show is start off how we always started. I want to know why in the hell you are even interested in the paranormal. Your bio says 20 years. I want you to go all the way back to the beginning in year one and let the viewers know why you have gone down this path that you are on.
Sure. Well, it actually it started in high school. I had come across a book on parapsychology, which, for those of you who don't know, is basically the study of psi phenomenon. And psi is basically ESP, telepathy, remote viewing, those types of paranormal phenomenon. But it's actually studied in the academic world. So I stumbled upon a book on this, and it's basically everything paranormal. So that includes ghostly encounters. And I read it in high school, and I couldn't get enough of it. And I went to the library, and I got every book there was on parapsychology, and I started reading all those. And then I got really, really interested in it. And it sort of led me into going to school or college for psychology. And then I was in my undergrad in psychology, and then I got interested in, well, maybe I can make a career out of this whole parapsychology thing. And I've mentioned this on maybe some other shows, but I went up to one of the psychology professors and I said, I'm thinking about getting into parapsychology. And he was like, well, you're going to be poor and jobless for the rest of your life if you do that. And I said, oh my God, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
So he encouraged me to go into more clinical based things. And if my interests were still in parapsychology, to do that sort of as a side research thing. So I ended up getting my degree in clinical counseling. So that's more clinical mental health counseling, individual groups, family, that type of thing. So I got my master's degree in that. And I was still interested in parapsychology. So then I went overseas to the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And that's where I studied psychological research methods. And my dissertation was in parapsychology. And then that's where I learned the most about the field and about, statistics and developing research and experiments. And that's where I learned the most about it. And then I came back to the States, got back into clinical work, and I started noticing some things in clinical work. And that's what led me to write my book, The Ghost Studies. So that's sort of my progression there. Most people have an amazing ghostly encounter or paranormal experience, which sort of ignites their passion and flame. I unfortunately did not have that. I just more got interested to the books part of things, and I wanted to get the answers to things. And that's kind of what led me down this road.
Right. It sounds like you believe in ghosts, but they don't believe in you type deal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Sometimes I get, when I say this, people will email me or message me on Facebook. But I would really like to have an earth-shattering ghostly encounter. I see that as being sort of like an amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience that a lot of people have had, but unfortunately, I haven't had one. So not to say I look for it or I want ghosts to follow me around, but I think it's such an amazing, once life-changing experience that it's something that I research and I would like to experience sometime in my life.
Right. It's strange why some people have not experienced anything, yet there's a whole lot of people out there that have. That's one of the hugest conundrums I can think of when it comes to this subject matter. It's interesting to know from someone from your background, like having a clinical, background, almost a medical background in psychology and therapy and stuff like that, and viewing the paranormal from that perspective. Can you give our listeners some insight on what can maybe explain some of the things that you found in your research when it comes to illness, disease, psychiatric conditions, all the huge spectrum that you've studied? What have you found to be the most prominent?
Well, I will say this, and a lot of times, skeptics and maybe people who don't delve into sort of paranormal experiences or psi experiences on a daily basis often assume that people who see or hear things that aren't there are crazy or have a mental illness. And a lot of times if you say, oh, I saw a ghost, someone might smirk, oh, you're crazy or something like that. um, I don't see a huge overlap between mental illness and spontaneous paranormal experiences. I worked in the ER for 7 years. I did close to 5,000 evaluations, behavioral health evaluations on patients. And people with true mental illness like schizophrenia, delusions, those types of things, there's a difference between that and a person who has mild to moderate depression who had a paranormal experience. So mental illness is sometimes lumped with paranormal phenomenon, but in my experiences they're two different things. Everyone in the world has had bouts of anxiety, depression. So this is something that we all have. I think I think they're kind of connected. There is some psychology to experiences. Like if I go to a haunted house and I'm all primed and ready, I've read all the research on it, and I know all the ghosts in every room, then I'm sort of primed and I'm more likely to have an experience due to suggestibility, but in contextual factors. But other than that, I don't really see too much of an overlap between mental illness and paranormal phenomenon.
Right. What about like psychosis? Like, does there need to be like some, established diagnosed psychosis for someone, so you can kind of like pass over some of these delusions and hallucinations too? Or can there be like micropsychosis or some kind of thing that just comes and goes?
Generally, when you have it, mental illness is sort of like, unless it causes disruption to your daily life, so unless it's really affecting your day-to-day activities, a lot of times it doesn't get to the point where it's diagnosable. So there could be some schizotypal or schizotypy is one of these sort of continuums that has to do with psychosis. So if we think about anger, right? Anger falls on a continuum. I could be mildly upset or I could be in a rage, right? Both different sides of the continuum. The same can sometimes come with psychosis. You could have small amounts of it, or you could have it on a daily basis, which affects pretty much everything you do. Now, when it comes to diagnosable psychosis, there's a lot of criteria that goes into it. It's not something that for a mental health professional, it's very easy to diagnose psychosis because usually the symptoms happen pretty much every day. They're pretty outlandish to a degree, and it's not something that can be confused with the paranormal or psi. Sometimes there's personality disorders that have people who have overt magical thinking. Like there's a motion detect. If your neighbor has a motion sensor in their backyard and it goes off throughout the night, some people will automatically think, well, this is a ghost trying to communicate with me, when actuality there is something going on there. It's just a motion detected light. So some people take small things and make it magical things through their personalities. But I don't know if I answered your question, but psychosis can come very small, or it can come affecting you on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's kind of a loaded question, when you ask somebody, what spectrum or range can someone have, something going on like that. But it's interesting that you said there at the end when someone just how they perceive certain things and how they explain them is interesting to me, and I want to talk about that before we go to the comments and the questions that are in the chat. Ghosts, go ahead.
I'll just interrupt you real quick. We all have this thing called reality testing, right? Mm-hmm. Now, reality testing is something when we're young is very it's very immature. It's not fully developed. So when I'm 4 years old and I hear a noise in my closet, it's the boogeyman. He's got a knife and he's coming to get me, right? Mm-hmm. When I'm 36 years old, there's a whole list of things before it gets to the boogeyman. That could be the cat, it could be the air conditioner, it could be just a house moving. So we all sort of come up with these solutions and ideas to rule things out. Now, when we're 4 or 5 and our reality testing is very low, we automatically go towards the boogeyman or paranormal. But as we mature, we sort of go away from that, and our reality testing gets a little bit better. Sometimes people have deficits in reality testing, and it can cause people sometimes to go towards more paranormal. Um, so if you have a person that has a paranormal experience every day, they might have maybe what's called low reality testing, whereas someone who has a paranormal experience once in their lifetime, I don't think you can say that they have issues with reality testing. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to get that in there.
Right. What I say, and when you say reality testing, I say critical thinking, and I think
Yeah.
they're about the same thing.
Yes.
But going a little bit deeper into that area of the subject matter, ghosts, hauntings, stuff like that is like an archetype in our culture. Okay, when people stray from critical thinking, what parts of your your college studies and your research tell you the reason why they stray from critical thinking and they go into the realms of believing in ghosts with very little evidence? I know there's a lot of rare occasions where people might experience something pretty profound where, it's obviously something that's beyond the scope of scientific understanding and rational thinking, critical thinking. But why do you give us some examples of why people would go to that, that place of ghosts?
It's very individualized. I think it has a lot to do with how they grew up. It has a lot to do with how they cope with things. So if I grow up on a steady dose of ghost hunting shows, I might be more prone to go towards explaining something as paranormal. Um, some people will use ghosts as some sort of coping skills. If I have a very troubled life or a lot of trauma in my life, maybe I might be more enclosed to or more inclined to cope with things through, sort of external control or belief in the paranormal or something like that. There's all these really things that really come with that. Paranormal beliefs have been shown if your if your mother or father has strong paranormal beliefs, chances are you will as well. So it's almost like passed down in a way. So there's all these things that really come with it. There's really not an answer to it. Some people, it's an escape. It's sort of this idea that there's more out there than just this crappy little world that we live in. There's an afterlife. There's spirits. There's communication. There's the ability to connect with deceased loved ones, and that provides a sense of comfort for a lot of people too. So they use it as a coping skill. So there's all these reasons why someone might be more prone to go to a paranormal cause for an event. But I talk about it in the book. You know, are there paranormal phenomena? Yeah, there definitely are. I think that the research out there there's so many experiences. I don't think you can discount all of them. But there's a set of the population that is probably more likely to report paranormal phenomenon based on a lot of the stuff that I just talked about.
Right. I think it's very organic. There's seeds that are planted and it kind of grows in many different branches in many different ways. Like you said, when people try to cope and grasp with their own mortality, are they dealing with the death of loved ones, family members throughout different periods of time in their life? There's a lot of factors going on, and we try to pinpoint all those when we try to investigate what's going on, and it can be very difficult, as you know.
Yeah, and it could help for some people. It helps the grieving process if they perceive to have a sign from their deceased son. Um, they smell his perfume, or there's a cloud in the sky that looks like something, or a car that they drove passes you by. you see it as a sign, and it comforts you, and it helps with the grieving process. And so, you know, we do this ritual through funerals so we can see the person after they're dead. It's sort of like a closure type thing, and that's helpful. So if we don't get that closure, sometimes we can get it through an apparition. So there's all these things that really come into it, the psychological aspects of why you might have a paranormal experience. But then again, that doesn't discount the genuine ones. I want to make sure I say that. I don't want to say that it's all psychological, because I don't believe that.
Right. You have to be skeptical when you go looking and you're finding it a lot versus you're sitting in your living room watching TV and all of a sudden something happens unexpectedly when you're not looking.
Yep.
So that's a good way to lay the groundwork.
Yes. Spontaneous case examples, which are like those crisis apparitions that you talk about. I'm laying in my bed random Tuesday night, and an apparition of my aunt shows up, and she says, "It was nice knowing you." And then I find out the next morning that she passed away right at the time that I had that experience. Listen, you can't explain that through very much psychology type things. That's really more of a telepathy, crisis apparition, spontaneous distress signal sent to you. You know what I'm saying? So those cases are really good ways to sort of decrease the variables associated with these encounters and get a good idea of what's going on. Because most of the people that have those experiences aren't looking for ghosts, like you said. They're not psychic. They maybe this is their only paranormal experience they've ever had. So these are all things that decrease this idea that people decreases suggestibility, previous paranormal belief. All that stuff kind of gets thrown out the window, and you're left with just the experience. And that's really where you get the most information about a ghostly encounter, and you can take the most out of it.
Right. We before we go to the comments and questions in the chat, I think it's interesting when you deal with coincidence, like some crazy type coincidence. You know, like you said, that you were, just talking to, or about this person that just suddenly passed away, and it just the way it lines up is really, really baffling to people. And then and it comes to what's statistically possible, and we will get into that in the show because I know that you've done some research on that. But Jess and Missy, who wants to go through the comments? See if there's any questions. Who wants to go first and start shouting out some people?
I'll go first. John Cool's on. Glenda is on. Bozart's on. Sam's on. Scotty actually had a question. Can oppression be evaluated as a psychiatric issue?
What was it again? Can oppression?
Oppression
be diagnosed as a psychiatric
issue?
No, oppression isn't really a diagnosable. Oppression is more like a reason or a symptom. So how you diagnose somebody, there's a big book called the DSM-5. So in the DSM-5, there's all the diagnosis, like major depressive disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar, and you have to meet all the criteria to get a diagnosis. So there's no diagnosis of oppression. Oppression is more of if I'm oppressed, it might lead to depression. So it's something you have to manage through counseling, but it's not something that's diagnosable. So if you have a kid that's really oppositional, defiant, then he can get a diagnosis of oppositional defiant disorder. But oppression is more something you deal with in counseling. It's not really diagnosable. I hope that answers his question.
Yeah, I mean, he said that he was thinking that a paranormal can amplify psychiatric issues, even inducing episodes in some people.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's something if the paranormal experience is something that's distressing you on a daily basis, obviously it's going to wear you down. It's going to affect your sleep. It's going to affect your relationships, your mood, your viewpoint on life. It's going to lead to anxiety, depression, isolation. And then obviously you might get to the point where you might need to see someone for it. there's a lot of correlation between, depression and paranormal experiences and things like that. Trauma has sometimes been linked to people with paranormal experiences. So if you have a previous trauma, you might be more likely to experience paranormal phenomenon. So in the book, I kind of go over a little bit about why that happens. So trauma in a way can maybe open the door a little bit more to these experiences. So I think there is a link there. I can't really cite too much research into that, but there is a small link that's been identified.
Sure. That's it for YouTube.
Okay.
Yes.
Missy, do you have anything going over there? Shout out who's watching.
I got Derek, I got Joanna, I've got Holly, I've got Chelsea, I've got, who else do I have? Daniel, I have Constantine, St. Michael, Philip, Wyatt, Mike Kirby, that's about it.
All right. Any questions? Any interesting comments that might spark some?
The first question was from Joanne. She wants to know where his belief ends. Demons, possession.
Where my belief is with demons? Is that what the question was?
Where it ends. Where your belief ends.
What is the
Do you
extent
believe
of
in
your belief?
demons?
Oh, I
in
see
the
what you're
paranormal.
saying. Okay. Yeah, I don't know much about demons. I don't know much about that end of the paranormal spectrum, just like I don't know much about Bigfoot or aliens. My research is really focused on apparitions and ghostly experiences. So I try to stay away from the demon part of things because I really don't know how to answer those types of questions. And usually if I don't look into it or read it, I don't know very much about it. So I don't really comment on belief and things like that. I leave that up to the people who do those types of research. I will say that, apparitions and ghostly encounters happen to millions of people every year. And these people it's not through fraud, it's not through lying, it's not through mental illness. I think there's genuine ghostly encounters that occur. Now, what causes those ghostly encounters and what actually those ghostly encounters are is up for debate. It could be a lot of people have the earthbound spirit idea. There's place theory, there's imprint theory, there's the psi hypothesis. In the book, I have two new theories that I discuss. There's probably a multitude of other ways to look at this. So, what I really encourage people is of all the ghostly encounters out there, there's not just one answer for all of them. It's a complex situation, which has a lot of complex processes going at once. So to say that all paranormal experiences are the results of spirits influencing us, I think is naive. I think there's so many different answers to this question. So if I have a pain in my shoulder, there's not just one answer to that. It could be nerve damage. It could be how I slept on it. It could be the weather. It could be a heart issue. It could be a herniated disc. So there's different answers to what causes my shoulder pain. So I think the same thing is true when it comes to ghostly encounters. So I don't want people to be narrow-minded and only have one thought on that.
Very good answer. Anything else on Facebook, Missy?
Yeah, Joanna asked a question, but it is more than 2 lines long, and I can't read the whole comment.
Who asked it?
Joanna.
Joanna. Let me see if I can find it.
It's like 5 or 6 comments out.
Okay. So she says, "Okay, I don't mean to be a downer, but I have a serious question. Since a ghost cannot be studied, how can anyone have a degree in parapsychology? For instance, we can study physics or psychics. That millions of dollars is still out there. But what types of research can you use? It just seems like a pseudoscience unless you are strictly on debunking issues."
Well, parapsychology has been around for numerous years. The Society for Psychical Research started in the late 1800s, and there's been actual scientific experiments dealing with a lot of this since then. Um, you can develop research experiments to sort of set out to show that telepathy is reliable and valid. And telepathy is, communication at a distance without the normal senses. Extrasensory perception, remote viewing. The government had a program that was 15, 16 years long that really studied remote viewing. There's other examples like paranormal beliefs. There's research in the reincarnation, the DMT. So there's poltergeist, recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. These are all things that fall under the parapsychology umbrella, and you can test these things through research. There's a book out there that Dean Radin wrote called Real Magic. And Dean Radin is a parapsychologist out of California who's done amazing work. And in this book, he goes over a lot of these experiments that he's running, which are parapsychological in nature. So parapsychology covers a broad spectrum. When it comes to ghosts, can you study a ghost? In a sense, no, because you can't catch a ghost and study it. It's not like you can dissect it like a human body or something like that. But what you can do is you can study the ghostly encounters. You could see consistencies among correlations, types of people. There's a subset of the population who might be more prone to ghostly encounters. Why is that? Why are people having ghostly encounters in one location and not the other? What types of ghostly encounters are they having? So there's all things you could really study when it comes to ghosts. So the title of the book, The Ghost Studies, yeah, I don't have a ghost in my basement that I dissect. It's more based on theories, the latest research into it, entanglement, global consciousness, consciousness in general. These are all topics that parapsychology studies. So when people say it's a pseudoscience, I don't get angry, but I would just encourage you to start reading up on it. The president of the American Association of Statistics, I think I'm getting that right, recently came out, and this is a big organization that is basically all the statisticians in America. This is the president saying that there's enough evidence to suggest that telepathy exists. I'm summarizing. There's enough evidence statistically to suggest, through all the research that's been done in parapsychology, that telepathy is a legitimate phenomenon. All right. So that's someone who takes their statistics pretty seriously and is saying that this is a legitimate phenomenon. So to me, it's not a pseudoscience. You have a pretty prominent person saying that all this research in telepathy and parapsychology is legitimate phenomenon.
That's a pretty good question. Anything else, Missy?
Mike Kirby wants to know what he thinks about empathetic experiences, such as fear of the sickness and the emotions of death.
The emotions of death.
I think that's what it says. It's more than 2 lines long, and I can't read it.
All right. What do I think about the emotions of death? I don't know what I think about the emotions of death.
Like empathetic experiences, like an empath would have.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do a lot of research, and a lot of my research at the University of Edinburgh was on a thing called environmental sensitivity. So empaths, it's sort of a different. Environmental sensitivity are people who are really, really sensitive to the environmental stimuli that's around them. So these are humans. How do I want to say this? When it comes to sensitivity, what it is the definition would be capable of registering very slight differences or changes in the environment, right? But there's people out there who are really, really sensitive to the environment. So these types of people, when they experience noise, smell, taste, touch, and electricity different than the general population. Some of them feel like they can actually interact with electronic devices and it causes them to feel drained. Smells are overwhelming to them. Touch can be overwhelming. But these people tend to have allergies, asthma, migraines, fibromyalgia, just suffer from a lot of sensitivity that the normal population doesn't. But what research really shows is this type of population has way more normal experiences than the general population. So being really sensitive or registering slight differences in the environment, they're able to somehow tap into something and have more paranormal or psi experiences. And I think that there's what we're seeing here is actual neurobiological origins for differences in sensitivity, and then you can sort of trace that back in a back doorway to paranormal experiences. So why is this population having way more experiences than the general population? Why are they experiencing this? What's different about them biologically and neurologically? And I think that is sort of along the lines of an empath. An empath is sort of a vague term, but if you break it down, it could mean more sensitivity to everything that's around them. Now, I'm not talking about psychic sensitivity. I'm just talking about being really, really sensitive to the environment. I hope that made sense. I always go off on tangents sometime.
It does to me.
Okay.
We'll go back. We'll go back to the chat here in a second. I have some things I really want to ask you, Brandon. There's a couple things that I try to educate people on. Okay, and I want you to touch base briefly, but try to come to the point without going off too much on the tangent, because I want to try to get as much in on the show. I try to teach people what cognitive dissonance is, psychosomatic behavior, and pareidolia. Okay? Those three things I want you to kind of give your impression on.
Oh, I didn't know it was going to be a test, Justin.
Well, okay. Cognitive dissonance is, you have opposing beliefs, right? You believe that ghost is real, or you believe that this photo you had, for example, was a ghost, but then you just discovered or received this new information that opposes that. So you get stress. Maybe you thought this orb photo was your granddaughter that died, and then you just found out that it was just dust. You get stress, but so the stress caused by that and not wanting to believe in this new information is technically cognitive dissonances. There's other examples. Okay, psychosomatic responses would be like, if you plant something in someone's head, a ghost is hiding over there in the shadows, you'll get goosebumps raise up in your arm. That could be psychosomatic. And pareidolia is kind of like the ink block test, where they ask you, what do you see in this random image, and the brain tries to make sense of it and adds their subjective attributes to it.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, cognitive dissonance, and this is just going off the top of my head. We all have these beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. And we tend to gravitate towards things that validate our beliefs. So if I believe in the paranormal, I'm probably going to gravitate towards websites, people, blogs, shows that sort of verify my belief in the paranormal. If anything comes across my belief that says it's not true, then I struggle with the internal conflict that's going on. And this doesn't just happen with believers. It also happens with skeptics. They tend to be on skeptical blogs. They tend to be on things like that. So these thoughts, these beliefs, when there's a change, or when someone confronts you, or you are presented with evidence that suggests that it is not true what your beliefs are, then there's problems like that. And I think you did a great job explaining psychosomatic. Psychosomatic is basically this idea that, if my pain or something that's happening to me physically is the result of something mentally that's going on. I'll give an example. When I used to work in the ERs, we would often get patients who had pseudo seizures. So pseudo seizures are seizures that are related to, there's no medical explanation for it. And a lot of times there's a belief that there's a psychiatric reason for it. So while they're exhibiting physical symptoms, it's not based on a physical or medical problem. It's more based on a mental health problem. So psychosomatic can come like that. So what was the other one? I forgot already. That was
pareidolia.
Pareidolia, yeah, and you explained pareidolia really, really well. We see we see patterns in things that there are really no patterns in. It's like looking up into the clouds. There's really no patterns there, but we could see our brains are sort of made so we could look up there. There's no patterns, but maybe we can make out an elephant or a face or an arm or a leg. And people do this a lot with photos. So you might have an orb, and you might see a face inside the orb, or a reflection in the mirror. You could make out to be a face. these are three things that happen quite a bit in the paranormal field.
I know.
I've been at plenty of places where people give whole presentations on pareidolia, and they show photos and things like that. And you'll get people who get really upset with that, which
Oh,
is sort of
yeah.
cognitive dissonance in a
Yeah.
way. So all these things are really present in the paranormal. I think I take everything with a grain of salt. When you go down my Facebook feed, there's a lot of videos that are of paranormal things, which you can say, listen, I know that's probably not paranormal, but there's really no way for me to debunk it in a way. So you just kind of have to let it be. The same with pareidolia and things like that. I appreciate a lot of people's passion for the paranormal, so I usually don't get into fights about debunking things, because it's just not telling people that what they saw isn't what they saw is a dangerous road to go down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's necessarily a good role to have. It's necessary at times, but it's maybe not for me.
It's not productive most of the time.
Yeah, there was.
Okay. Sorry, guys. My computer crashed. Thankfully I got it up within a few minutes, so if I lost some viewers, I apologize, Brandon, but I'm going to not pretend I remember what the heck you were saying when that happened. Do you remember what you... Okay, we were talking about cognitive dissonance, pareidolia, and psychosomatic response. The reason why I asked you about that is I tried to educate people on those three things primarily. And, confirmation bias is what you were talking about mixed in with that, which causes, the dissonance and everything. I just want people that maybe have been following me and watching me, hearing me say that and saying, well, what does he know? I want you, a trained clinical psychologist, to echo what I've been saying. So that's why I brought that up. I think that, as long as we try to cross off things that aren't paranormal and give alternate explanations and try to educate people on psychology. I love psychology. I mean, I aced it in school. It's just like freaking awesome. And yeah, I just think if we get over that first hump, people that are into the paranormal, that believe the paranormal, they're trying to investigate and figure it out on their own. They're taking their cameras, they're using their senses. I just wish they were more receptive to a lot of the constructive feedback that we try to provide for people, and it just seems like an uphill battle. It causes a lot of cynicism for people like yourself and me that take this subject matter seriously, and that is kind of like a bad side effect and a product or of what comes out of the end of it. And I just think it's not productive. So we have about 10 minutes on the show. What would you try to convey to people that you would like to be receptive to your book and your research? What is your advice to people who are trying to understand your look on the paranormal? And what things do you offer in your book that you think that would be most help to people that we're talking about? Yes.
muted.
Okay, I just now seen it muted, so I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay, I unmuted it.
can you hear me now? Is everything good?
Yeah, we heard you, but I wasn't
Oh, okay.
broadcasting your audio.
Oh, okay. Um,
Sorry.
oh, that's all right. What you wanted to something about the book, right?
Right, like what is your message in the book? Like try to sum up your
Oh,
message
okay.
to people when it comes to conveying your idea and your approach to the paranormal.
Yeah, yeah. So, listen, it's no mystery that science has sort of dropped the ball when it comes to explaining ghostly encounters, and often these amazing encounters can be explained away by some as hallucinations, misinterpretations, and overactive imaginations. And individuals who've had these terrifying encounters sort of struggle to find answers, and they're kind of left with, not that this is all a bad thing, but they're kind of left with reality television shows to provide insights into these life altering experiences. Um, and there's millions of people who are looking for books with more than just ghost stories or tales of haunted locations or reviews of outdated and recycled theories. And what the Ghost Studies does, which is my book, it combines the thrill of reading real life ghostly encounters and also the satisfaction of maybe some new perspectives and insights into the cause of these thrilling encounters. So, what I do in the book is I provide concise and encompassing theories that's actually based on data rather than faith or belief to explain ghostly experiences that have really piqued our interest for hundreds of years. And new perspectives on apparitions, hauntings, communications from the dead, they're all discussed, they're all examined. And what's more even unique about the book and appealing is it's fresh theories. And it tackles some flaws in the current theories that are out there. Um, so, you know, the book itself is meant to, it goes over um, EMFs, it goes over the latest research, it goes over psychological aspects of ghostly encounters, it goes over entanglement, how consciousness can play a role, what the role of telepathy is in ghostly encounters, haunted locations. I have case examples of haunted locations. And then rather than just leave you with a story, I present a little bit of information about why this location might be haunted. And it's not all skeptical. It's not all, well, it's because the EMF is causing this and they're misinterpreting it. I'll say this before and I'll say it again. I believe that paranormal experiences are genuine, but I give reasons for that. And I actually back that up with a little bit of science. And I think that's really what the book is. And that's what really makes it different. I try to produce these things. I use the knowledge that I've gained over the last 10 years, and I've just put it into a book form. And all I encourage people to do is just read it, get a different perspective. Um, like I said before, there's not one theory that explains every ghostly encounter. And my theories by no means account for everything that happens in the paranormal world. But I think they fall into a certain category or sliver that can explain a lot of haunt type phenomenon and a lot of ghostly encounters. And I ask people to just give it a chance. I mean, you can get it at Barnes and Noble. It's on audible.com. You could order it from Amazon. Um, it, if you're really interested in paranormal and you want a little bit know about the science behind it, I think it's a good book. I'm biased though, in a way.
I have not read the book, but I have spoke to people who have read the book. Obviously John Cool, he's in the comments on YouTube. I don't know how he's at work watching the show, but he figured out a way. He's aligns with my thinking on the whole subject matter. If you want to know what's going on, you have to look at it objectively, and when you do that, you find out that not everything's paranormal, especially when you go looking for it. The emergence of the phenomena is so bizarre and beyond what we can understand and know about. For me, I'm going to speak for myself here, that we have to take a step back and just try to be more objective. And that's what I think Brandon has done with this book. It's a very objective look using science, clinical studies, all types of research out there that has proven to be very effective and informative. So if you want to know, what is going on, possible explanations that aren't paranormal about hauntings and everything, like you said, definitely this is one of the best books that I've found out there. So, let's let the viewers know how to get the book. I've seen some people in the comments wondering if you had any discounts or sales going on.
Well, actually, it's a pretty good time to do it. Amazon actually has it at half price, so I think it's like $7 on Amazon. Um, if you sign up for Audible, like if you don't have Audible and you sign up, you get a free book, so you can get it that way too. So there's ways to kind of get it for free. I don't like listening to Audible because I like to have my book in front of me and highlight and do things like that. But most people enjoy that. So there's huge discounts on it as it is. If you're, I know you're in the Ohio area, but I speak at conferences, so you can go to my website, hauntedtheories.com. And usually when I'm out speaking, the book is pretty cheap as well. Check out the website. If I'm an appearance near you, please stop by and say hi. And I got a pretty cool presentation on some of my new theories. Where I don't know where I'm going to be next. Mid-Michigan Paranormal Conference at the end of September. And then next year I'm doing that big conference in Chicago, Haunted America, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, I bet that'll be cool.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about that. Both of them, the Mid-Michigan too. There's a lot of great paranormal research up in Michigan. Not a good football team college-wise, but a lot of good research.
You heard it from Brandon.
I heard it. I threw that in there for the Michigan people. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Thanks, Brandon, for coming on the show. I apologize for the technical issues. I seem to get it up pretty quick, but if you guys want to make this not happen again, help me out here. I need Stream Deck. Okay, Bill Davis, if you're watching, loan me your Stream Deck, because I multitask, right? I'm using my keyboard to switch between scenes and different functions on my broadcasting software, and then I'm trying to type in the comments, and then I'll hit one of those key binds, and it's bad. So we need to get better here on the live streams, but I think that we managed, despite all those problems. Thanks for coming on the show. 1 hour really doesn't do it justice, but I think we've teased the viewers just enough to maybe buy the book, go to your conferences, and listen to your lectures. So if they're intrigued. Yeah.
Follow. I'm on social media at Haunted Theories. It's on. I know it's on the page, your Facebook page, but Haunted Theories, Twitter at Haunted Theories, www.hauntedtheories.com. And the best way to get a hold of me if you have a question is through social media. And I post a lot of stuff through there. So reach out, say hi. I always like to hear questions and comments. I do respond to all of them mostly. It's been great. It's nice having a conversation. So you do a really good show here. So I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. You're very welcome. Maybe we'll have you on again if you're doing the shows. And I'm looking forward to your new book. Did you want to talk about your new projects?
Well, this book took me 6 years to write, and I just started the outline for the new book. So God only knows when that's going to actually show up.
Can you give us like a hint about what the book will be about?
No, I'm going to keep that close to my chest.
Okay.
I don't want to spread it out too much, mainly because I don't really know what it is quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a basic outline for it. But I think it's going to be something that's going to be pretty great for everyone in the field. Paranormal investigators all the way up to academic researchers. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's just finding the time, to sit down and write a book. It's quite a daunting task to do something like that, especially to get it published, because then that's another 6 months of trying to get someone to spend money on your book, which is a nightmare. I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably have books or are working on books. So it's quite a struggle, but it's fun in the end. I don't want to be a negative Nancy on that whole thing, but it's fun in the end.
It's all worth it, right? Well, thanks for being on the show again, Brandon. If you would like, you can hang out in the video call. If not, you can just hang up. But I'm going to go close out the show, and we'll get this one in the books. All right, guys. There you go. Okay, sorry for the tech issues, but I'm going to tell you what, if you are looking to have really good literature when it comes to paranormal research and investigation, you need the ghost studies on your shelf, okay? it's coming from me, all right? If you want to listen to what Justin has to say, get this book, okay? I've already talked to somebody who I value their opinion. John Cool is a really cool guy. He's serious about, the same stuff I'm serious about. And if he thinks that Brandon's got it going on, get the book, okay? It's super cheap. Listen to it for free on Audible. There you go. The links to his website and where to get the book and follow his social media is in the cards on YouTube. It's in the description of the video broadcast on both Facebook and YouTube as well. So we thank Brandon again for being on the show. So let's close this out, guys. We're going to go to the links. Okay, if you want to see this type of content continue, like I always say, if you want to see it grow, stay here. And, be here to stay. You can go to patreon.com/support interface death. It's a way to help fund the projects that we do, which includes these live shows, but it extends to all the paranormal research we do. A little as $1 a month can help us. If all the viewers and people interested in our content would donate $1 a month, we would not have any financial issues on everything that we're doing. But there are tiers and rewards that you can get from what you are able to pledge. So please check that out if you want to support us. Check out Necromancer Live Show on Facebook. We throw all kinds of stuff out there to keep you up to date, let you know who the guests are and their bios. Follow Interface Death on Twitter and on Instagram. Okay, guys? The patrons are what make this show possible, all right? Everybody you see on the screen here is what ensures that this content is here to stay. So Christy Brown, Clay Borman, Matthew Jackson, Matt Benton, Bill Davis, Gwendolyn Guthrie, Landon Wells, Jessica Bias, R.J. Murphy, Liz Coy, and Danette Goldtrip are all pledged on our Patreon. And if you want to see your name show up at the end of these shows and see the names and see your name in the credits of our video productions, that's the way to do it. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for joining me every week. Thanks for all the support. I love you guys very much. You're in my heart each and every day, each and every episode that we do. Let me look on the calendar and let you know what's going on next week. So it looks like we have Holly Mullins for next week. So that should be a very, very interesting show. If you're not familiar with Holly, you can check her out on Facebook. She may have a website, I'm not sure. But same bat time, same bat channel. If you are new to the show, you can stick around for the video promotions at the end. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks very much for watching the show once again. I'll see you guys next time. You have a good evening.